Namaste and greetings. I, Ayush Verma, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्था नई दिल्ली extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Talk. We have gathered here today for the IMPRI seventh annual series of thematic deliberation and analysis of the Union budget for the financial year 2026-27. As part of this, we will be engaging in a panel discussion on the environment and the Union budget 2026 and 27. This discussion is organized by the IMPRI Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development under the IMPRI Web Policy Talk series. I warmly welcome all of you to this insightful deliberation and thank you for tuning in. The chair and moderator is Mr. Ashish Kothari ji, founder member, Kalpvrksh, Pune. Today's expert panelists include Mr. Debadityo Sinha ji, lead climate and ecosystems, Vidi Center for Legal Policy, New Delhi. Mr. Soumya Dutta ji, co-convener of South Asian People's Action on Climate Crisis in New Delhi. Ms. Prarthana Borah ji, fellow CEEW Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Professor Krishna Raj ji, visiting professor IMPRI, professor Center for Economic Studies and Policy, Institute for Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, India. Mr. Himanshu Shekhar ji, senior editor, Political and Current Affairs, New Delhi, Television Limited, NDTV India, visiting senior fellow, IMPRI. The conveners of the program are Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. To begin today's discussion, I'm honored to invite Mr. Ashish Kothari ji, chair and moderator, to share his opening remarks. We welcome you, sir, and over to you.
Thank you, Ayush, and thanks to the IMPRI team for organizing this. Your persistence in doing these analyses of the budgets over the last few years is commendable. Congratulations for that. It's a very useful service that you're performing for societies. Thank you. And thanks to everybody, all the panelists for joining. Unfortunately, we are going to be missing Debadityo because of a scheduling clash, but he has some comments which we can add to later on. We do have Soumya and Prarthana with us, and Krishna Raj is also joined. Hopefully, Himanshu will also be joining soon. I don't have too much to say, but just a few opening remarks. In the last few years, one of the ways in which we've been trying to analyze the budget from an environmental and ecological point of view is threefold. One, what are the direct allocations for environment, such as for the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change? Second, what are indirect allocations that could be positive for the environment, for instance, for organic farming? And third, what are the allocations for sectors that are more or less destructive to the environment, such as mining and highways and so on? So this is sort of threefold way in which we can look at it, and I'm sure some of the panelists will dwell on one or more of these. Now, from my point of view, just looking through the finance minister's budget speech, one thing that I normally do every year is to look at how many times words relating to the environment have occurred in the speech. This may not be completely indicative of the budget, but it does have some sort of symbolism. And so, if one looks at it, the word environment itself appears only thrice, one in terms of financial environment or fiscal environment, but two times in an environmental ecological sense. One is to do with transportation and the other is to do with a movement of cargo on national waterways. And on both of these, I'll make a quick comment a bit later. So that's the only time that these occur. Then if one looks at things like ecology, zero mention except once in relation to tourism trails. Wildlife, again, all under tourism. There's no separate mention of that. Biodiversity, zero. Pollution, zero. Toxics, zero. If we then look at the finance minister starts with three kartavyas, three responsibilities that the government has when it forms a budget. It's the first one is to accelerate and sustain economic growth. The second one is to fulfill the aspirations of society and build capacity towards those aspirations. And third one is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, as in everything has to be inclusive of all people. And then she says three requirements for this. One, to sustain structural reforms, which is mostly towards things that enable more growth, more privatization, etc. Secondly, a robust financial structure, which is to do with taxation and incentives, etc. And third, cutting edge technology, and in particular, artificial intelligence is mentioned. Now, in all of this, this whole setting of the priorities for the budget, you will see that environment, nature, ecology are missing. It's as if even now, so many decades after people have been pointing out that ecology environment needs to be at the core of any financial and economic planning, it's still missing. So that is a very clear indicator of where our government is headed or not headed. The other issue is, so as I mentioned, environment comes in twice in the finance minister's speech. One is to do with national waterways and saying that we will have environmentally sustainable movement of cargo by developing X number of national waterways. Now, we know that wherever this has been attempted, it actually can be ecologically quite damaging because they do dredging, they actually clear the waterways of any obstructions, they try and channelize the waterways in such a way that shipping and so on can be made more easier. This is by no means environmentally sustainable. In any case, there's no definition of what environmentally sustainable means in this case. Secondly, they talk about environmentally sustainable passenger systems, which is high-speed railways. For instance, between Pune, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc. Again, firstly, this is only between big cities, so we know who it's catering to. But secondly, we also know that these kind of high-speed railways can also be ecologically extremely damaging. They will go through forests, they'll go through valleys, they'll go through farms, common lands, etc. So again, how this is by definition environmentally sustainable is not clear at all. Third, very quickly, climate. This again gets almost no mention or maybe no mention at all. I think Soumya and others can tell us more about it. But the only place, I think there's one thing about carbon capture, utilization and storage. That's the only place where this is mentioned. And Soumya and others, if you can please comment on that. So again, the whole issue of climate adaptation, we know that tens of millions of people are already badly impacted by the climate crisis, whether it's heat stress or droughts or floods or receding glaciers or whatever. And yet, as far as I can see, there's no allocation or very little allocation for something like that in the budget, as far as at least the finance minister's speech is concerned. Fourth, as I mentioned, nothing on pollution. And again, I think Prarthana is a specialist on this. Soumya also, you can tell us more about the whole issue of why pollution doesn't really figure, despite the very severe crisis of air pollution in our cities and, of course, water pollution and so on. And sitting in Delhi, I don't know how, well, I know how and why, but it's still amazing that something as bad as air pollution is kind of ignored. So these are just some. Also, if you look at nature, there are three places where it's mentioned. So one is CNG, so compressed natural gas. Secondly is natural fibers to do with textiles, and third is natural person, whatever that means. So again, nature is kind of missing. The only places where it's mentioned is about turtle and bird watching walks for tourists, and a big cat alliance that Prime Minister Modi had initiated a few years back, and there's gonna be a big summit of that big cat alliance. Otherwise, wildlife biodiversity is missing. And finally, there is obviously a very big push for mining, and possibly the most alarming, mining of rare earth and critical minerals. Now, that is required apparently for the modernizing economy, but we also know that this can be extremely damaging. And we know that, for instance, lithium has been found in Kashmir. One of the reasons why Ladakh might not be given sixth schedule, which the BJP had promised long back, is because they're hoping to find rare earths and critical minerals there. I think some have already been found. And so, and of course, in all our border areas, this is a big issue. So anyway, these are just a few things I wanted to mention. I am definitely not an expert on this. We have four experts who will go much deeper into this. So let me turn over to our distinguished panel. As mentioned to them, to make it a bit more interactive, I'd like to start with the three of them. Oh, Himanshu is still not here, right? Okay, with the three of them giving us.
We have
Sorry?
We have small presentation.
No, that's from Debadityo. Even Himanshu sent a presentation?
Yeah, but our team has small snapshot.
So he's not joining us?
No, sir. Our team also have a small snapshot.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead with your team and then I'll call on the panel. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable insights. Now let us have a quick look at the highlights of the budget in respect with the environment and sustainability factor. The highlights of the budget in terms of the environment and sustainability area, we have that the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change have been allocated 3,759.46 crores, showing a moderate increase over the past years, a strong political shift toward climate action and green industrial transition is visible through the new large-scale investment. While overall the environmental spending has risen, pollution control funds have been stagnant or reducing, raising concern over air and water quality management. The budget emphasis sustainable infrastructure, clean energy transit, and biodiversity convention as long-term environment priorities. Renewable energy continues to receive strong political and capital support as part of India's sustainable strategy. We can have a table which gives us a look at the budget allocation over the past few years from 2024-25 to the current budget. There is a revenue increase wherein in 2024 and 25 the net revenue was 2,130.61 crores, where today for this budget the revenue is 3,536 crores and the capital is to 222 crores and the total sums up to 3,759. Next, we have the key areas where the climate change initiative has been taken place. The major climate initiative are the CCUS program, which is the carbon capture, utilization and storage, which have been allocated over to 20,000 crores for over 5 years, which targets heavy industry, steel, cement, power, and power sector, aims to reduce industrial carbon emissions significantly. The overall benefit that is aimed to achieve is supporting India's net zero climate goals and clean manufacturing. For the wildlife, forest, and ecosystem, there is an increased attention to the afforestation and the biodiversity program. Global Big Cat Summit announced to boost conservation leadership also, continues funding from Green India Mission and wildlife projects. Uh, through it, we aim to achieve the stronger ecosystem resilience and biodiversity preservation. Renewable energy and green transit has also seen a push with continued strong budgetary support for solar, wind, and green hydrogen initiative. Focus on expanding green power capacity and strengthening energy infrastructure and supporting India's long-term climate and net zero target. The benefit that the government aims to achieve through this is to promote low carbon growth and energy. As we see the budget allocation over the years, the actual budget allocation, the budget estimates, and the revised estimate for this. So there is more than 2,000 crores increase for the budget allocation from 2024-25 to the budget estimates of 2026 and 27. For the ongoing schemes, the Ministry of Environment, the total net budget of the Ministry of Environment has seen a region of from 2,219.7 crores in 2024-25 to the budget estimates of 2026 of 3,759.46 crores. Various other initiative has also seen a rise in budget estimates this year. For the new schemes that we have the carbon capture, utilization and storage program, which has around 4,000 crores for budget estimate this year. Sustainable mountain trails and ecosystem corridors for over 1,200 crores. National Green Industrial Transit Fund pilot phase, which is also about 2,000 crores. Enhanced biodiversity and wildlife conservation drive, about 800 crores of budget estimate in this year. That's it from my side. Over to Ashish sir for moderating the session.
Thank you, Ayush. So I think it seems that some of the budget allocations which seem positive are not necessarily mentioned in the finance minister's speech. So yeah, again, our panelists can tell us more about whether they're actually positive or there are some issues with it. So let me start with a 1 minute round for each of the three panelists. If you can just give us your sort of top line observation, just like 1 or 2 sentences, and then I'll come back to you with more details. So let me start with Krishna Raj. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ashish sir, and thank you, IMPRI and Dr. Arjun for having this conversation for the last several years and making one of the this program is well received by all India level academicians, students, and others, and also it is going very popular in the coming days. As per your mandate, I just mentioned few things at the outset, and I will wait for my turn for a detailed analysis of the Union Budget 2026-27 on the environmental front. The Union Budget 2026-27, as per my observation, tries to address the environmental concerns in an half-hearted manner or business as usual model. It is very difficult, or even for me, constrained to speak about the inconvenient truth, or it is a hot potato to discuss. Even though Economic Survey 2025-26 talks about environmental conservation, but it is in theory, but not in practice. I will come back.
Thank you. Perfect start. Thank you. Prarthana, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish sir, and thank you, IMPRI, for inviting me. I actually will just take up from what Ashish sir said in terms of the words that were mentioned and in terms of how many times environment was mentioned. I think it has been a general trend that we have now moved from using the word environment to using the word sustainability and greening the economy. So I think, from my perspective, because I work on air quality management, I will firstly express disappointment because I would have liked to hear the word air and air quality management and air pollution more in the budget. But because it's also an opportunity for us to look at where we could bring in the element of air quality management, I think one of the areas that I we see an opportunity is to look at the MSME sector because of the budget allocation done towards the growth of the MSME sector, because there we have the opportunity to look at what kind of emissions are being generated as far as air pollution is concerned, as well as looking at clean transition in terms of both energy and technology.
Thanks, Prarthana. Very clear. Thanks a lot. And of course, we'll wait to hear more analysis on this from you. Soumya.
Okay, thanks, Simpri and Ashish. And I have a short comment in the beginning is that the budget, in the name of tackling or addressing climate change issues, actually it is promoting anti-climate activities like coal, even the huge allocation for CCUS, I will explain later. This actually promotes coal. Combined with that, if you look at the coal ministry allocation, it has risen by 641 percentage points, 6.4 times. The renewable energy also, there are good government schemes, but the government completely misses it. And the renewable energy allocation is substantially increased, around 40%. But the way it is being done, it's actually creating a lot more environmental issues and issues of livelihood and distress. The last point that I want to mean is that probably intentionally, if not by mistake, I doubt it very much, probably intentionally, they have sort of hijacked a lot of environmental languages and used them to promote business as usual, the polluting, dirty industries of energy and climate.
Thanks, Soumya. So I think we have three very clear focus areas with the three panelists. I noticed that Shyamala is also here. I don't know whether is Shyamala also here as a panelist.
Thank you, Ashish. Yeah, I mean, in the sense that I think Arjun just wanted me to speak about the sanitation aspect, because we have also had water pollution issues, which is, this as at such a time when you would think that most of the countries have progressed, that we are still sort of encountering these kind of instances. I just wanted to highlight that hardly 1/3 of the SBM 2.0 budget has been utilized, and and people who have made a kind of an audit on what kind of progress has been made even for sanitation and toilets have not been not just rewarded, but have been literally reprimanded. So I mean, the fact that air pollution is not addressed is, I can definitely understand that we are all really upset about it, but something that for which we have a program, and even that we have not utilized, and we have not made any progress on that, is really very disturbing. And children dying of such things.
Thank you, Shamla. We will call on you for a little bit more elaborate explanation of that. So thank you, everybody. Let me now go back to the panel for a bit more elaborate, if you can take maybe 5-6 minutes each. So Krishnaji, I think you were saying this is a sort of a half-hearted attempt in terms of the environment. So yeah, if you can go into more detail, and I think because we will have air and climate being dealt and water pollution being dealt with by the other panelists. So if you can focus on some other areas, if possible at all. Yeah, go ahead.
I try to link it to environment and economy, and I'll speak more on macroeconomic and environmental issues. I may jump in for some sectors, may not be in detailed way. Let me talk about first economic survey 2025-26. Even though economic survey has dealt in detail about urbanization, making India's cities work for its citizen. This is the caption, one of the chapters that deals with. So there they have considered mobility as important economic activity for GDP growth potential of cities, as cities contribute 60% towards India's GDP. And the economic survey identifies transportation inadequacies resulted in diminishing of cities' vitality in terms of environment, in terms of saving time, etc. So in terms of traffic congestion, pollution, noise, reduced productivity, as symptoms of decline, almost it is considered as the cities are dying, especially tier 1 cities, given the magnitude of these environmental problems. So economic survey quoted, at least cited our study on economic cost of traffic congestion we have conducted in the Bangalore city in the economic survey. And we estimated, and the economic survey also cited the loss of productive hours caused by traffic congestion. It is about, we estimated 7.07 lakh hours in 2018 for Bangalore city. That translates to monetary loss of 11.7 billion rupees. So this is aptly quoted by economic survey. However, in the present budget presented by Nirmala Sitharaman, tier 1 cities are highly suffocated, as I explained, with inadequate infrastructure, including congested roads. It was expected that tier 1 cities receive adequate fiscal incentive to deal with this traffic congestion and pollution. However, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities received some relief, but no fund available to the tier 1 cities. Therefore, I spoke. There is a disconnect between theory and practice, what economic survey says and what budget speaks about in managing the tier 1 cities. And they have created a concept called developing city economic region by connecting these cities with high-speed trains. How this high-speed train really resolves or solves the problem of traffic congestion and also infrastructure issues in Bengaluru and other mega cities. So if you look at the energy sector, environmental budget, it does not clearly speak about these emerging issues. One is that the per capita energy consumption in India is steadily increasing with GDP output, GDP growth rate, resulting in per capita emission of greenhouse gases. One is energy consumption is increasing, resulted in per capita increase in greenhouse gas emissions. So as a result, the mean temperature is increasing steadily, heating, and the cities have become a what you call it as heat islands. So in it is same mentioned in the UNEP report, No More Hot Air Please. That clearly shows that how these countries, including India, they are more depending on coal, and they are extracting more coal and dependent on thermal energy, even though they are claiming themselves that they are producing more renewable energy, but there is no storage and other facilities. But this budget tries to address the storage of this renewable energy that was very lacking in the country. What I observe is that in this budget, economic and environmental policies are expected to align together, given the mandate of sustainable development by the Brundtland Commission and also SDGs, Sustainable Developmental Goals, to be achieved by all the member countries. However, the economic and environmental policies diverging. Their gap is increasing, and I always feel that all the every economic policies should have environmental embedded content. Economic policy can also be having conservation aligned with the economic policy. For example, if road is constructed, along the road there should be water bodies should be preserved, and there should be animals to pass through these corridors, and afforestation along the highway should be done, even planting of trees, etc. That is the way one can think of. So, but this budget mainly focuses on four important areas. One is that is carbon capture, utilization, and storage. This is more about what I feel is that it is a economic policy rather than environmental policy. It tries to help the corporate sector, and it does not, in a long way, it helps total reduction of carbon in the country. Another one is that decarbonization, and third one is the higher allocation to MOEFCCs, and that is also inadequate. And coastal management is the another area where 853 crores has been allocated. If you come to CPCB, only rupees 123 crores has been allocated. In order to deal with air pollution in the megacities, there was a commission for air quality management is created in this budget. And waste management has not received any importance in this budget. Of course, they wanted to create around 500 reservoirs, and 290 crores has been allocated for project and elephant tiger. And the clean energy value chain that they wanted to create through two important ways. One is that clean energy, and another one is through technology. And the rare earth material corridor is the one of the way in which they want to address the environment and economic development in mineral-rich states like Odisha, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala. But these mining will take place, I think, in the rich forest zones. How these concerns are being addressed, I really don't know. And further, the nuclear energy, if you come to nuclear energy, recently,
Krishna, sorry, if you
I'll-
can make this the last point, and then
Yes,
we'll
yes,
have
sir.
another round later on. Yeah. go ahead.
Yeah. So, especially nuclear energy, but they have given it to the private sector, and I seriously doubt about the security and also the ensuring security for us in the hands of private sector. And last point is that the economic survey, I want to show that one. In the first page itself, in the preface, I will read out a very important sentence in the economic survey that is really astonishing to all of us. I read out, I quote that one. The Ministry of Environment and Forest relaxed green cover norms for industries based on their polluting potential from the uniform 33% mandate. Indiscriminate quality control orders, which adversely affected downstream industries, were put on hold. So this is not acceptable to me. So in this way, I can understand that yeah, they are going to take India as a pollution heaven in the future time, in the future days. So I'll stop here. I'll come back again. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks a lot. And actually, this is very much in line with their the whole motto, the World Bank motto of ease of doing business. It's
Yes.
not where obviously anything that is in the way of industrialization, business, and economic growth has to be shoved aside. So it seems to be more or less in line with that. Prarthana, over to you.
So I think Professor Krishna Raj has mentioned, in detail about the allocation. So I'll skip that. But I want to actually discuss, because the budget is so pro-industrialization and industry heavy in terms of allocation, where are some of the areas that we as an organization could intervene, or how we would like to look at the whole issue of addressing air pollution. And one of the areas that we are concerned about and we work with is the small medium industry, the micro and small medium industry. And if you look at, there is actually, if you look at the latest emissions inventory, probably it says that about 21 to 35% of the air pollution can be attributed to industry. But if you try to break it up into how much is actually attributed to MSMEs, it's a little bit difficult. And there is, you do not have very accurate data. So, but I think that is an area that really requires, addressing, because if you look at the budget, there's about 1,000 crore. I think not 1,000. I think it's 10,000 crores that has been given for the SME growth fund, and there's also another 2,000 crore which is given for the self-reliant fund. And there is a lot of focus on this sector. So here, I think there is an opportunity to look at how the growth happens, and that is probably where we would need, sector experts looking at environmental research, as well as energy transition and technology transition initiatives. There is also a basic. There's also a lot of focus in terms of the storage, battery, in terms of basic custom duty exemptions in these areas. So there will be a lot of focus in pushing some of these industries in terms of energy transition. So the opportunity here is, how does one create the mandate, or the policy support, or actually a narrative around the aspect of how do we bring clean energy, clean transition within this sector, so that we can reduce air pollution. So that is on the opportunity front. In terms of sector, I think there's a push towards the textiles sector expansion. And the textile sector, because we work with it, we know that there is a push in terms of upgradation of technology, skilling in terms of reducing the impact on air pollution. So I think there's an opportunity there to look at how we could address the issue of air pollution through specific interventions. The third area where there could be an opportunity to look at air pollution is the announcements on the freight corridors. And here you can see, probably, how does one create the policy push or the drive, or the adequate research to look at piloting electric mobility in these freight corridors. So nothing is actually directly correlated, but I'm talking about interventions that could lead to reducing the impact of air pollution. Because if you look at the direct budget allocation, whether it is the air pollution control I think there's a slight increase from 850 crores to 1,091 crores. On the CAQM, Professor Krishna Raj mentioned the budget has increased very minutely. CPCB budget also has increased very minutely. So I think in terms of direct interventions, it's going to be disappointing. But we have to look at how we could address the issue of air pollution from the industrial economy perspective.
Thanks, Prarthana. Very, very interesting. So this actually pertains to the second in the threefold analysis that I was mentioning. I think the second one about how indirectly through these sorts of opportunities, you're saying there could be positive impacts on the environment. So thanks for bringing those out. And we'll come back to you towards the end on if you want to add anything more in this or if there are questions from the audience. Soumya, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ashish and IMPRI again. So let me focus on, since there are so many aspects and the time is limited, let me focus on two aspects. One is the energy focus, and that in this budget you can see, and I will connect it with the last budget also. This budget you can see the budget for coal ministry has been increased dramatically. In fact, there was a downtrend for the last few years, but this budget has increased it, I think 640%, as I said, something like that. So the clear focus is we are locking in coal burning and coal power and coal as main source for a very long time, because now you're investing means it's a 40 to 50 year lifespan for 40 years for mining and power plants. If you start now and 10 years hence it's built. So that is very clear that in spite of all the noise and all the massively increasing impact of climate change on Indian population, like in many other populations, we have really not thinking about reducing our contribution, though it is not a very big contribution. 7.5% of global emission is significant, but not very dominant. But that needed to be tackled. Second is, if you look at in combination with the last budget's 20,000 crores, somehow I don't know why 20,000 crores seems to be a favorite figure for Nirmala Tai. Say last budget, they allocated 20,000 crores for SMRs, small modular reactors. And that's an extremely dangerous move, because we also, just before few months, in this December, 25 December, they actually brought in the Shanti Act through the Shanti Bill, repealed the two atomic energy related acts, the Atomic Energy Act 62 and the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010. And both of these were replaced by the Shanti Act, which now opens the entire nuclear fuel cycle in the energy field to private sector. Not only private sector, it says any entity, a private person, an individual can invest. So if you think of how thousands of crores of worth of drugs are caught regularly in Mundra port, then you can see if you are handing over operational control to nuclear material, radioactive material, as well as fissile material, then the kind of misuse and kind of dangers that can happen. Second is, nuclear energy is a very well-known source of massive pollution lasting up to 100,000 years. Now, we don't, nowhere in the world, the problem of radioactive waste from the fuel waste, that has been tackled. So it's people in different countries, they just put it in drums and throw it in the ocean. Sometimes they degrade and crop up. So the third point is, they have, let me quickly come to the another big 20,000 crore push, the CCUS, the carbon capture, utilization and storage. Actually, CCS and CCUS over the last 14 to 15 years globally has received around $45 to $50 billion of research. And we have been following this for many, many years. Even today, CCS costs more than $100 if you take all per ton of carbon dioxide. Even the total sales on coal, 1 ton of coal will release around, if you consider the carbon content differs, will release around 2 tons of carbon dioxide. Even the sales on coal was 400 rupees or something. So if you have 1,000 rupees per ton of carbon price, it's not going to be actually sellable unless the government subsidizes. And what does CCS for CCS do? They actually allow a far longer term use of coal and oil. So what does that do? Apart from the carbon dioxide, and I'll come to the carbon dioxide part very quickly. apart from the carbon dioxide, coal burning and oil burning is also the biggest source of air pollution in the country. And in air pollution, there are studies repeatedly coming which shows now 2.1 million people premature deaths take place every year. There are studies which are showing that India loses anything between 8 to 10% of its GDP because of air pollution. When Geeta Gopinath just mentioned this in the Davos, this rich man's club, there was a uproar, halla bulla. But this is known for years and years. So you are allowing, by this question of this dubious means of CCUS, the coal and oil to continue indefinitely. Second, and the air pollution is not, it's not going to be stored somewhere. It's only the carbon dioxide will be separated out, stored. And I don't know whether people have heard about the Lake Neos disaster or similar other disasters. When in 1986, this stored carbon dioxide, trapped carbon dioxide under Lake Neos, there was a limning outburst, and more than around 1,800 people died, along with around 3,500 cattle. So if we are going to create thousands of pressurized carbon dioxide storage all across India, wherever you get a good rock formation, who is going to guarantee that during even a small earthquake, this will not catastrophically burst out and thousands of lives are not going to be lost? Like Lake Neos disaster, like it happened in earlier in Egypt. There are incidents historically happened which are natural causes. So we are going to replicate Lake Neos in thousands of places of India. And which communities, if they know, which community is going to agree to that? So let me just say this. This is a clear, in the guise of climate action, this is a clear anti-climate action, anti-people and anti-clean air action. Because coal and, as I said, coal and oil burning will keep on emitting particulates, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, tertiary, secondary and tertiary particulate pollutants. So those are not going to be tackled at all. So under renewable energy, let me have this quickly last comment. The Renewable Energy Ministry has got a big boost, almost 40%, I think, boost in its budget. That's welcome if you look at it overall. But even though the government of India earlier had a few good schemes, like the Kusum scheme, which is for farmers mainly, Kusum ABC, was a good scheme for distributed renewable utilization-based solar energy application. And that actually helps not only a transition, but also a boost to the rural economy, more money in the hands of the farmers. But there is hardly any push for that. The major push in renewable energy is going to mega solar and wind parks, which are actually displacing tens of thousands of pastoralists, mostly some villagers also, but tens of thousands of pastoralists. There are a lot of other critiques about solar, that this will do that. From a scientific point of view, I don't buy that, because there is not very clear argument about that. But the kind of concentrated, enclosed land occupation being done by these mega solar and wind parks, this is a major threat for our traditional livelihoods and the people who will be forced out. So I'll end here, and afterwards, if there are issues, because there are many other issues in here.
Thank you, Soumya. Very, very clear. And just a quick addition to what you said, these mega RE projects are also, of course, a serious threat to wildlife, because a lot of them are so-called marginal lands where there is unique and endemic wildlife to it. So thanks a lot. Yeah, these are very serious concerns. Himanshu has just joined us. I see Himanshu. There are two Himanshus here. I hope both are not going to be speaking. But Himanshu, welcome. Would you like to give your main points?
Yes, sir. You can hear me. It's a privilege to see you.
I think your two devices are on, so you're echoing.
Oh, no. I think the other one also I am unmuted.
No, it's echoing.
Okay, I'll just log off. Just a minute. Because actually, sir, I have a desktop before me.
No, Himanshu, sorry, a lot of echo coming.
Yeah, okay.
Can you close one of the screens?
Okay. I'll just log off from one. Okay. I wanted to play the PowerPoint, but Arjun sir is there. Now I think it will be okay, sir.
Now it's okay. Go ahead, Himanshu.
Yeah, that's okay. So Arjun sir, you are online?
Sir, I can share your PPT if you want.
Yeah, please do that. Okay, so sir, at the beginning, just a few facts for deliberation in this interaction on a subject which I think is very very significant. Of course, I cover Parliament as a parliamentary reporter for NDTV, and I had reported extensively on budget. So I have collated some important facts that have been mentioned in the budget document, which will be taken up for discussion next week, starting Monday in Lok Sabha. And the presentation, of course, is largely a perspective on what government has proposed and what are the issues which have not been mentioned or is missing from the government's game plan. But the government's argument that we heard on that day, or the day the budget was presented, was that this budget advances the idea of developed India by balancing economic growth with ecological sustainability, striking a balance between Prakriti and Pragati, and it also lays a foundation for a sound environmentally and sound ecological growth in a fast-growing economy, and includes several measures related to environment protection, conservation, as well as protection of biodiversity and richness through initiatives such as establishing the International Big Cat Alliance and organizing the first ever Global Big Cat Summit in India this year. Next slide. So as you can see on the screen, the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change overall allocation for the year stood at 3,759.46 crores, which is 10% from the budget estimates for 2025-2026. But what is important to note is that the Commission for Air Quality Management has been allocated 35.26 crore for the upcoming year, down from 38.98 crore in the BE for 2025-26. So it's almost a 10% reduction in the allocation for Commission for Air Quality Management, which of course is the primary body now to both monitor and give directives to control pollution. And I think in several interactions that government ministers and bureaucrats had, we did ask this question repeatedly, that there is no concerted effort to address issues like pollution crisis. And this data, of course, is a reflection of the questions that have arisen after the budget. India's flagship wildlife conservation programs, though, Project Elephant and Project Tiger, saw a kind allocation of 290 crore, nearly double the 153 crore which was recorded as RE for 2025-26. Next slide. Now, there are three important mentions that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman made in her speech when she was talking about sustainable development. She said to promote environmentally sustainable passenger systems, 7 high-speed rail corridors between cities will be developed as growth connectors. And she named these 7 corridors that you can see on the screen. And also to promote environmentally sustainable movement of cargo, Finance Minister said that she was proposing a new dedicated freight corridor connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. Next slide. The National Manufacturing Mission has been expanded to focus on developing a domestic ecosystem for EV batteries. This has been an issue which has been addressed in previous budgets as well. And the government's understanding is that this is a step towards green mobility, solar PV cells, electrolyzers, and wind turbines. And there is also a plan that over the next 5 years, 20 new national waterways will be made operational, starting with a National Waterway 5 in Odisha to connect mineral-rich areas of Talcher and Angul and industrial centers like Kalinganagar to the ports of Paradeep and Dhamra. It would also help reduce the carbon footprint of logistics, a major step towards eco-friendly transport. That's how Environment Ministry said when this proposal was made. Next slide. Now, in a part of Finance Minister's speech deals with energy transition and security or renewable energy. And this is a subject, of course, which will come up for discussion when the budget is taken up for debate in Lok Sabha on Monday. Finance Minister said, and I quote, "I propose to extend the basic customs duty exemption given to capital goods used for manufacturing lithium ion cells for batteries to those used for manufacturing lithium ion cells for battery energy storage systems too. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on import of sodium antimonate for the use in manufacture of solar glass, and this is expected to help reduce input costs, boost domestic manufacturing, and promote export competitiveness in this sector." And there is also a proposal as part of our customs duty reforms to actually exempt the customs duty on import of goods required for nuclear power projects till the year 2035 and expand it for all nuclear plants irrespective of their capacity. And this comes just ahead of the India-US trade deal which has been announced. And the government has made it very categorically clear that nuclear power is one area on which India will have access to the high-end power projects and technologies that US has, which is a global leader in this area. And this is area in which private sector is also being encouraged to invest and will be a focus area. So as part of that larger strategy to expand the infrastructure for nuclear power projects in India, this basic customs duty exemption has been given. Next. Nature-based tourism, which would include special turtle trails to be developed at turtle nesting sites in Odisha, Karnataka, and Kerala. New bird watching trails will be established through around Pulikat Lake, creating not only awareness among citizens about protection of nature, but also creating a sense of pride and ownership in the natural landscape. Next slide. The budget also includes an initiative for
Himanshu, sorry to interrupt you. We've actually been through some of this before you joined. If you can get straight to your analysis, please.
Yeah,
what is your analysis of whether this is pro-environment, anti-environment, whatever?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you. And just please finish in the next 3 minutes because we're giving everybody 8 minutes.
1 minute. I'll finish in 1 minute.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, sir, this budget comes at a time when the intensity, the frequency, the scale of disaster incidents have risen alarmingly in India. And we saw in the monsoon season the devastation that happened in Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. And we expected more allocation, more concern, more focus on disaster mitigation strategies. Now, those that mention that is not very in detail that I could see from the document that I have read. Another issue was climate change, because we have been doing interviews with Met scientists, and they're saying that this monsoon season of 2025 is a huge warning to us in terms of what is coming ahead. So we thought that there will be more effort to address the challenges on the climate change front, on disaster mitigation front, on, in fact, strengthening the resilience of communities which live in disaster-prone areas, who are more vulnerable, in terms of strengthening their capacity to combat the impact of climate change. In fact, there is a mention of climate resilient seeds, etc., but there's just a small minor reference to that. But I think the impact of climate change on food production is also one subject. As a student of climate change and food security, I was expecting a bigger focus than what has been given. It does say, as I speak to you, that government has announced a 6-year mission to develop climate resilient seeds for pulses, which will enhance agricultural sustainability. But I think there are several other crops which are expected to be far more affected, especially wheat and rice. And last thing I want to make is that in the last session, Agriculture Minister had presented very alarming facts about the fact that climate change could lead to a reduction in the rice production and wheat production by up to 19 to 20% by 2050 if the trend continues of climate change. So their cropping patterns are changing. The impact on food security is also becoming more and more alarming. And I thought that a more greater focus will also be given to the impact of climate change on agriculture. But except climate resilient seeds and a mission for developing that, we don't see much concerted effort in terms of addressing the debilitating impact of climate change on agriculture, on especially important food crops like rice and wheat. So that's it, sir. From the disaster and food security point of view, I was expecting far more focus than what has been given. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Sorry again for interrupting you, but I think that this point you've made about disasters and about agricultural resilience and adaptation, the fact that there isn't really much of a focus on it, I think this is certainly a very crucial point. Thank you. We will have one final round with all of you, so if there's anything you want to add later on. Shyamala, very quickly, if you could
Yeah.
also just share yours. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not only the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, but Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has also seen a cut of more than 11.6% in the budget. And, over and above that, we see especially Swachh Bharat Mission. That's what I was talking about, that, when you have such incidences like the one which we had in Indore, where there is water contamination with sewage and things like that, you really wonder. I mean, and it was not only in Indore, it was replicated. It was that kind of a situation was seen in several cities, and it's still going on. And so when you have a cut of 50% in the SBM urban budget, from 5,000 crores to 2,500 crores, and you see that kind of a thing even in Amrit, because sewerage and sewage management, FSTP, all that comes on. I mean, especially in the larger cities, it comes under Amrit. So even that has seen a huge cut, and so one really wonders whether there is there any kind of responsive action, and then also the fact that some of the, even if there is a non-performance, I can't understand a city like Indore. How can it be that it's receiving so many accolades continuously for 8 years, and still it can end up in such a disaster? So is it also Himanshu was pointing out, something to do with the climate resilience aspect, which has not been looked at, and it's not been properly addressed? And the other one we see also is the PMAY. So that is a very important aspect, where health aspect, and especially WASH and various other aspects which can be strengthened. Instead of that, that has also been cut to 3,500 crores. And again, what Prarthana was pointing out, even the public mobility, which is what one would expect, that especially when you have an air pollution disaster in the country, even the PM e-bus seva, there is a cut from 1,300 crores in the last year's budget. More than it is higher. It is it's again cut very significantly. So it's been allocated only 500 crores. So, it just shows that in the case of environment, and especially in urban environment, and especially for peripheral areas, even smaller cities and towns, if such major cuts happen, so even the smart cities, if you see the smart city mission, there's not even a mention in the budget. So whatever is allocated, they have to manage with that, or I don't know what they are expecting, that it will close down or something of that sort. So I feel there's a complete anomaly between what is actually happening in the country and what we really see, and especially in the urban sector, which has been pointed out, that as far as air pollution disaster and also the climate change disaster resilience, I feel that instead of strengthening the whole aspect, in fact, they have made it more vulnerable. That is my analysis.
Thank you. Thank you, Shyamala. Can I request the audience to please put your questions in Q&A? Do we know, Ayush, Priyanka, do we know if there's already any questions?
Sir, at the
Otherwise,
moment, yeah, no, not right now. There are no questions. Just
okay.
somebody has raised hand. But we can ask them to put the question in Q&A itself.
No, it's okay if you would like to. If they can put their question by voice, then it's fine. Sophia, please go ahead. Sophia, would you like to speak, or do you want to put your question in the Q&A? You're on mute, Sophia.
Sir, I think we can proceed. If they have a question, they can put in the Q&A later on.
Okay. Okay. So let me. I'd like to ask a couple of questions. One is, I think, on the sector of mining. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the focus on critical minerals and rare earths. I mean, I only read a little bit about it in the finance minister's speech. But if any of the panelists would like to dwell a little bit more on the ecological implications, environmental and social implications of this push towards critical minerals and rare earths. Any of you would like to?
If
Soumya,
others
go
are
ahead.
volunteering,
Go ahead, Soumya.
see, I have a little different take on this. See, in any society, you can't avoid extraction completely. And in that case, today we extract around globally around 8 billion tons of coal annually, and in India about 1 billion tons of coal. So in that respect, if we have to replace most of the coal-based energy and even oil-based energy, you will have to have certain kind of mining and extraction. And for that, some critical minerals are required. But the thing is, we are actually missing out, particularly for India, a lot of the development that has happened in the world over the last 5-6 years. See, this question of lithium. Lithium was never developed for large-scale storage. Lithium was developed and it's suitable for portable devices because of its high energy density. Sodium-ion batteries have already been commercialized in China. And in fact, flow batteries, the liquid metal batteries, which are much more suitable for large scale, and these do not require critical minerals. Like sodium-ion batteries don't require lithium. So similarly, flow batteries don't require any critical minerals. So we are actually missing out what already is being developed to avoid this dilemma that whether to go for remote areas and to mine very rare minerals in areas where people are dependent on their livelihoods on the natural resource. So that's one major area. We don't know to do that for sodium. But I think this whole thing is being last comment on this, being driven by already committed investment by crony capitalists, because several of our biggest capitalists, most favored businessmen, they have already invested in these sectors. So that is one thing which is driving this government to ignore better developments and to go for this kind of course, I'm not saying mining will be stopped, not extraction will be stopped. Any society will need extraction to survive and to have basic services.
Thanks, Soumya. Yes, thank you for that nuanced response. Very important. Anybody else wants to make a comment on this, on the mining?
Yeah, shall I make a few observations?
Yes, Krishna, go ahead.
I agree partly with Himanshu about these remarks on the mining. Yes, of course, a country needs to develop its own energy security and also technology-driven economic development that is supported by semiconductor, etc. Because the whole world is moving towards securing energy and also technology. Of course, India's policy towards energy and technology, it is welcome step. But at the same time, if you look at the environmental standards and environmental compliance by the MOEFCC, it has been very, very pathetic. So in this regard, when they conduct the mining in these states identified by the economic survey, budget, there should be 100% environmental compliance. And even I can propose if it is in the tribal or rich biodiversity area, they can be avoided. And if it is in other areas where minimal displacement is there they can go for the mining. And at the same time, I would like to suggest one more thing to government is that we have to carry out cost benefit analysis before taking up this type of mining. So if costs are higher than the benefits, we should abandon such mining activities in the ecologically sensitive zones. And if possible, the government can import these critical elements or critical minerals rather than exploiting our own minerals that can be used for future generation also. There is no urgent need to exploit all the available critical resources, including rare earth materials. One can explore all these things with the international agreements. One can think of importing rather than exploiting our own resources. And most importantly, the local people should be made partners in benefit sharing if it is going to be essential for mining. These are all my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Yes, important points with regard to compliance and so on. But I think apart from avoiding, say, Adivasi or dense population areas, one would also have to say avoid biodiversity-rich or critical wildlife endemic areas and so on and so forth, which actually essentially means that probably most of the areas being earmarked would be off limits. So I'm not quite sure where they're going to go. If it's about importing, well, then we're basically then just outsourcing our problems to some other, maybe weaker part of the earth. So I'm not sure that that's a very good solution either. So I think, and this is again something you can all comment on, is that I think essentially, maybe Soumya was hinting to that, we need to see how much is absolutely necessary, as in we cannot possibly do without, which also means challenging energy consumption, because it's not just that, okay, we have growing demands for energy and then we have to meet it in some form or the other, whatever is supposedly ecologically sustainable or sensitive. If we keep increasing our energy demand, especially luxury demand, wasteful demand, etc., then nothing is sustainable, right? So I think one needs to also look at it from that perspective. What is really absolutely necessary? How much consumption, by whom, and in what manner? Otherwise, it's a losing battle completely. So I just wanted to, but your points are important. Thanks for that. Also, with the cost benefit analysis, then how much of the ecological and social costs are actually built into the cost benefit analysis is also, this has never happened. It's been demanded for the last 30, 40 years, but the actual costs, ecological and social costs, are actually never included in the CB analysis. But yeah, thanks for those points. Sophia's question has come in the chat. Soumya, I think you want to come in on this energy thing again, or the minerals thing, but maybe after Sophia's question, we'll come back to you. So Sophia in the chat, she says, apart from allocation, utilization has also been a concern in terms of combating environmental pollution, including air pollution. Can anybody comment on the trends in terms of utilization, for instance, for the National Clean Air Program? Prarthana seems to have dropped out. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, who was responding? Soumya?
I was responding.
Go ahead.
Utilization wise also, NCAP came in, I think, 2019. And throughout, the utilization has been seen. The revised estimate and budget estimate, they kept on varying. In fact, last year it was 850 crores upgraded, but that has not been spent. This year, actually, this is a critical point. While more than 62% of the country's population is not only Delhi NCR, more than 62% of the country's population are exposed to unacceptably high air pollution, that is by CPCB standard, and more than 90% by WHO standard. These are data, government data, other credible data. So in that case, you have seen that even the full budget has not been spent on NCAP. And now for NCAP, this the pollution control, air pollution control basically, because these targets to 130 some cities and non-attainment, so-called non-attainment cities. In fact, almost, as I said, 60% plus area of India is non-attractive. They have actually reduced this even in the budget. I don't know if they will increase it on a revised estimate. There is a possibility. It happened last year. But actually, the budget has been cut by around 8.5 to 9%. And in all the allocations which people earlier shown, I think one critical thing is missed every year, that the Ministry of Environment or any other ministry is faced with inflation. So 1,000 crore last year is not 1,000 crore worth of action this year. So even if we have to be on at par, we have to increase it by 7% or so. So the real inflation is around that, whatever the government says. So actually, the allocations are coming down for most of the critical sector, except the fancy sectors where a lot of big money project, nuclear power plant, CCUS, and CCS are big money projects. These are not small one, because if you have to capture the entire carbon dioxide emission of a coal power plant, you need a big project. You need hundreds of kilometers of pipelines, pumping stations, chemical separation, all of this. So because you need to understand the science to really understand what is really going on. So I think that most analysts of budget and environment miss out on the science, because without that you cannot understand what is the actual challenge and what is actually being proposed. So in that, I think most of the money, instead of going into managing environmental conditions in control of pollution, it is going into big construction. And we never consider that all these huge constructions also consume huge amount of steel, concrete, cement, concrete, everything. And that also has a huge built-in, which is called embedded emission. And embedded emission is, again, not only carbon dioxide. In India or most other countries, embedded emission means carbon dioxide, methane, particulates, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, ground level ozone, a whole lot, around 30 to 36 different pollutants. What do you do with that? If you keep on increasing this kind of heavy construction-based approach.
I would like to add one more point with, I agree most of the point of Mr. Soumya Dutta. Ashish, one more issue is that, so allocation and utilization, there is always a gap. Apart from that, if you look at the budget, even it is mentioned in the presentation by IMPRI, most of the budget goes for revenue expenditure rather than capital expenditure. If you look at the MOEFCC budget, most of the budget goes for payment of salaries and other requirement. So this is also a major concern. How much amount is going to impact on the environmental conservation is the biggest issue we need to keep it in mind.
That's true. This is a very, actually, I thought about this in my presentation. This year it is 222 crores. And whereas you need huge amount of, just for, think about, most of the small towns don't have even monitoring stations. Somebody talked about climatic disasters. Himanshu, I think, talked about climatic. You don't have early warning systems in most places. So we needed to invest in those to build adaptation capacity, to build resilience. And there's hardly anything, almost nothing in that.
I just wanted to add, Ashish, a small point.
Yeah.
When we talk about air pollution, especially from thermal power plants, if you really go and see, I mean, they haven't allocated any amount. Like we are saying that we'll take net zero only by 2070. But there is no plan of action. If you today go to Singareni or any other place, it is so polluted. I mean, like people there are literally drenched in that dust. And those cannot even be retrofitted. So even if you're doing capex, why is it that no allocation? Why is it only in the nuclear power plant capex? Why not in completely, probably reconstructing these if you're going to use coal? And today we have a deal where we are getting coal from outside as well. Why are we not, in fact, focusing on improving the infrastructure of even the thermal power plants? They are in such a sad state. that it will never be possible to control air pollution from in the current state. In the current state, it will not be possible at all unless they completely demolish it and reconstruct it.
Thanks, Shambhala. And I think as Soumya was showing, rather than reducing, they're actually increasing allocations to coal, the coal sector, including in some of the most ecologically and socially sensitive areas such as Hasdev in Chhattisgarh and others. Okay, Veena Bhatt has put in the chat a question saying, in that case, environment is not treated as survival infrastructure, but only as a side issue. I think the answer from everybody is yes, that is the case. It has always been the case, actually, for the last few decades and seems to be getting worse. But does anybody want to respond? Himanshu, do you want to come in on any of these questions? I think we're still missing Prarthana. She seems to have had connection
Yes,
problems.
I think if you just look at the allocation, 3,700 crores for Ministry of Environment. If you just look at the list of ministries to which allocations have been made, the Finance Ministry, of course, is at the top with 19 lakh, more than 19 lakh crore has been allocated to Finance Ministry. Even Home Ministry has more than 2.5 lakh crore allocated to it. So vis-a-vis Defense Ministry, 7.5 lakh crores. So if you just look at the distribution of money across ministries, it is also a reflection of the priorities of the government in terms of how it plans to deal with different priority sectors. So Finance Ministry has 19 lakh crore allocation, Defense Ministry 7.5, 7.6 lakh crore allocation. Home Ministry has, I think, much more. Again, I think more than 2.5 lakh crore allocation. So if you compare it with bigger ministries, Environment Ministry has got 3,700 odd crore rupees. I think there is a need to scale up this allocation. As I said, that even the Central Air Quality Mission, for example, CAQM, but the overall allocation has been slightly reduced for CAQM. So I think we have been asking these questions as to why issues, and the biggest challenge that we have faced in recent time has been pollution and climate change. And that should have brought the Environment Ministry at the center stage of budgetary allocation, but that is not visible. But there are other ways in which she has tried to address these issues in terms of keeping India's commitments to the NDC, etc. But I think it is important that, when I was looking at the list, the first reaction was, when I was preparing for this presentation, oh, Environment Ministry is far, far below them, almost everyone else in the list. So I think we need to scale it up, increase allocations so that new measures can be thought of in terms of strengthening our ability to withstand, not only withstand, but address these larger challenges that many of my fellow panelists have so well explained, sir.
Thank you, Himanshu. I remember last year's budget, I had looked at the allocation to the National Highways Authority of India, and that itself was 60 times greater than the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. I don't know whether that's changed. It probably hasn't, because the roads and highways seem to be a very big favorite for this government. So yeah, your point is absolutely valid, I mean, important. Priyanka Negi has two questions. Oh, no, sorry, Priyanka has put two questions which have been received from the audience. One, what are the fiscal and governance risks of relying on carbon credits and market-based mechanisms, particularly in the absence of strong regulatory and monitoring capacity? Second, despite well-documented health costs of air and water pollution, allocations for pollution control remain modest. What does this imply for India's approach to preventive public health and environmental regulation? I think that second question has already been addressed by a number of people, but the first one on fiscal and governance risks of relying on carbon credits and market-based mechanisms. Who would like to respond to that?
Yeah, shall I come in?
Yes, Krishna, please go ahead.
It is a well thought out question. Look at the present policies at the global level. They want to address the issue of global climate change through mitigation, that too through reforming energy sector. And certainly they are going for renewable energy. But whether renewable energy is more environmentally sustainable is the biggest question. I always question technology is not the answer to some of the problems we are facing. Technology can be considered as two-edged sword that can harm the environment in future. For example, when 1940s, 50s, 60s, when the fossil fuels have been used as a new technology. Now that has been the source of our concern. That is environmental climate change. So, if the new technology we are using right now may be a threat to future also. For example, another example I can give. The chlorofluorocarbon invented way back in 1930s. It is a man-made gas. We use it in the various cold storage, refrigerator, and various this one. And later in 1980s, it is discovered that the chlorofluorocarbons are the root cause for depletion of ozone layer. Then we turned the chlorofluoro into hydrocarbons. Now hydrocarbons are causing another greenhouse gas, causing climate change. So the technology sometimes create more problem. For example, eucalyptus and green revolution, and these are all the new technology, even hybrid seeds, chemical fertilizers, pesticides. These are all new technology we consider, but they are causing plastic, even plastic. They are considered to be more environmentally destructive rather than constructive. Therefore, technology should be viewed in a proper way, and therefore, in order to address the climate change, there are natural ways to address the climate. Afforestation is one of the way, and changing the behavior in terms of production and consumption is the another way. The world should learn how to make this world more sustainable by nudging our behavior. That is the only way we can address. Otherwise, technology is for corporates. They want to invest on this new technology. For example, renewable energy like solar energy panels and wind energy, many other energies, electric vehicles likewise. So this has become another corporate way of investing and making profit rather than solving the environmental problems of the world today.
So, what you're saying,
think,
Krishna,
can
and
I
others are that.
respond to the question directly?
Swami, just a second. Basically, I think sustainable development is more about sustaining the profits of corporates and the power of states rather than sustaining the earth, right? It's a nice oxymoron in that sense.
Correct.
Shamya, yes, please go ahead. And also, in response to the other question about some more analysis on CCUS. So you said you've written an article, but if you can
Yes,
just
I
give a
have a
few
detailed
short
article
things.
written, published in yesterday or day before by.
Okay. Priyanka has just put your article in the chat.
Okay.
So, but please go ahead.
Because for me it was a little challenging. I'm on a phone.
Yeah.
So basically, carbon markets are nothing new. Carbon markets came into existence in 97. And we have enough experience of multiple kinds of carbon trading, carbon market in 47 countries, which have tried this across the world. The first was ETS, the emission trading scheme, which was on Europe, and the major international one was CDM. And we have seen carbon markets have neither reduced emission in the buying countries, nor reduced emission in the selling countries, nor reduced emission in the global scenario. So it must have reduced emission in the moon, on the moon. So carbon markets have never worked. Carbon markets have always been used to reduce the cost of developed country changes, because the actual changes needed are far more costly. You pay a little bit to some poor countries, some farmers, and ask them to plant some saplings. So that never worked and will never work. And the second point is this misconception about plantations can tackle climate change. In fact, we need to do a little bit of that to counter that, because this is a very, very popular misconception and a myth. Plantations or getting more trees will not tackle climate change. Even 20% tackling today's India's emission is 3.2 billion tons. Even to tackle or to sequester 20% of that, you need around 120 million hectares of good for additional forest. India's total farmland is 155 million hectares. Are we going to produce food, or are we going to plant saplings and wait for 15 years till those saplings become tree and start absorbing carbon dioxide, and then tackle climate change? I think these misconceptions are going on for long, and the government wants to push this misconception, ek ped maa ke naam, or 4 lakh ped gaya Adani ka kaam. So the government loves this, put people into wild goose chase, and actually divert their attention from actual destructive activities. So I think what can tackle climate change, what cannot tackle climate change, needs to be understood very clearly based on science and data, not an opinion. And the carbon markets, as I said, carbon markets throughout, all kinds of carbon markets. But the basic reason that I see why the government suddenly put so much of money in CCUS is 2 years back in the COP, the UNFCCC under the Paris Agreement operationalized Article 6.2 and 6.4. And Article 6.2 and 6.4 are entire regulatory mechanism and methodology of carbon market. So which was earlier known as CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, will be known as SDM, so-called Sustainable Development Mechanism. So sustainable development really as whole, as a concept, is an oxymoron, because the world has actually crossed its total ecological capacity in 1970s. So any quote-unquote expansion of our industrial or other activities is an expansion, is a cutting of Earth's capacity. So none of these are sustainable. But there is only one way. I don't want to go into that economic pathway, which will be considered sort of rebellious. But very clearly, we cannot still build a road or a house which needed to be built for people and servants of people. But we cannot build in anything more without cutting the Earth's capacity further, because we have crossed the Earth's annual productive capacity in the 1970s, early 70s. Out of the 12.93 billion global hectares, that is the total capacity. Today we are at 1.8 times that. Our extraction and consumption is and waste recycling demand is 1.8 times that.
Thank you. Thanks, Soumya. So sustainable development as a contradiction in terms, green growth as a contradiction in terms, green capitalism as a contradiction in terms. These are all new buzzwords that keep coming up for the current system to be able to sustain itself in its profits and its power, but show that we have a sort of a green face. So this is exactly what Soumya is talking about.
Actually, painting green by Asian paints or will be cheaper green development if we paint everything green.
I remember long back, I think 30 or 40 years back, when the case was filed against mining in the Dehradun hills. They had gone around actually painting the rooftops and the hillsides where the mining was. They'd gone around painting them green and then told the Supreme Court that we have, solved the problem. It's all now sustainable. Till somebody said, "Ye to khali paint hai." Anyway, I don't know if there's any more questions. IMPRI team, any more questions from anybody? Otherwise, we
No,
can
sir.
do a final round. Do you have any crucial points from Debadityo that can add to this discussion?
Not at the moment, sir. We were going to request your permission to play it just towards the end after everybody's final remarks are done and just the vote of thanks is left. If it's okay, then we can play it just before the vote of thanks.
Okay. So let us then do a quick final round from the panelists. Meanwhile, if anybody else still has questions, please put it into the Q&A. But I'm going to now be doing a final round and then I'll just do a few remarks. So let me reverse the order now. Let's start with Himanshu first.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I will just go back to what I had said after my PowerPoint presentation, that we need to do a lot more than what we have done. The idea is that there are challenges which are rising, and these are challenges largely on the front of now the impact of climate change is becoming more and more pronounced. And as a correspondent out in the field, I do get inputs almost every day in terms of the increase in the intensity, the frequency, the scale of disaster incidents. So there is a need to scale up disaster mitigation measures, a need to scale up climate change uh, impact. And of course, money is something very, very important. As we know, India needs $2.5 trillion to up uh, with achieve the targets given the NDC and the SDGs. The second issue is
Himanshu, your
s-
voice is breaking. Can you switch off your video and just repeat that last point about $2.5 trillion or
yeah.
something like that? Yeah.
I'm saying that I'm clearly it's visible. You can hear me now.
Yes,
Yeah.
much better. Go ahead.
So I remember in last 4 or 5 years, several times, different ministers have presented the same fact to questions as to how much money we need to actually combat climate change in terms of attaining those targets that we have committed, the NDC targets and the Paris Climate Conference, the kind of commitments we have made. The answer from the government, of course, in last few years has been the same, that India needs around $2.5 trillion to attain those targets. And of course, this would be a very difficult road ahead in terms of very complex energy transition strategies. And, but the idea is you need more money to combat impact, do the hand holding in different sectors in terms of helping the industry move towards more greener options. So I think we need to scale up the effort. And of course, the most important thing would be to increase budgetary allocation in the first instance for Ministry of Environment so that they are more capable. You can create new institutions to scale up this effort in terms of greater funding and also investing more in disaster mitigation, which I think is very, very significant today. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Himanshu. Thanks a lot for those final remarks. Soumya?
Okay. I think we had not only this year, for the last few years, we had a good opportunity for a just transition in building capacities, and enough money is being invested in other sectors. I think the government willingly, because of its policies and because of its closeness to basically the convoluted policy of increasing the business growth and profit and growth of sort of capital in a few hands. Government is missing that because we have this. I want to just highlight this critical factor because there is a lot of critique about solar and wind in terms of they do this or that they need land. Yes, they don't need land, but they don't really, if you don't think about the business profit, they don't need exclusive access to land. In many places, this has been shown very clearly. And there are models of how this distributed, community controlled, non exclusive, dual use renewable energy projects can be done. So we are actually, that would have rejuvenated India's rural economy too. This would have been a massive boost to our entire rural economy, which is almost dying now. So I think we have, the government is in its crooked policies, it is completely missing this, even though either by mistake or by something or by some good advice, one or two good schemes have been brought in. So that I think needs to change very fast. Hopefully, I don't know how it happens, but it needs to change very fast. Otherwise, we face a massive kind of disaster in multiple aspects, and one of these is climate change impact on the food system. There are many
sir,
other aspects of that which has not been talked about, but we can talk about it some other.
Thanks, Soumya.
And
And
sir,
perhaps some of
just your
the...
permission to make a 30-second intervention, just 30 seconds. Himanshu
Yeah,
here.
Himanshu, go ahead.
We just got this information that Priyanka Gandhi actually raised this issue in Lok Sabha today, and her question was on the impact of climate change on coral reefs. And she had said that whether government has any long-term action plan to protect and preserve coral reefs. So in response, the Minister of State in the Environment, Forest and Climate Change Ministry, Kirti Vardhan Singh, has made an important statement. He has said that the primary drivers of coral bleaching have been elevated sea surface temperatures associated with climate change and ocean warming, including thermal stress linked to El Nino events and prolonged periods of above normal temperatures. So, across sectors, I mean, I'm very happy as a parliamentary reporter that this is an issue that has been getting attention in Parliament, and MPs have been asking these questions. Government also giving very detailed answer. But this also has to reflect in the budgeting when we do. And the idea of making India a developed nation, of course, you need to weave in the targets and the challenges we face on the climate change front as well. Because as I said, and I'll just repeat this, government's own assessment is that the production of rice is expected to decline by 20% if the speed of climate change remains the same till 2050, and while that of wheat is around 19%. So that is the time when India's population would have become much bigger. So a decline of a feared decline of 20% in rice production, 19% in wheat production is something which should be taken very seriously. And we need to work more on climate adaptation measures to offset this impact. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Himanshu. Thanks for adding that, what's it called in your language? Breaking news. Thank you for that. And just from my side to add that it's not just about safeguarding coral reefs that are under threat because of heat stress and so on, but also, in fact, even protecting what coral reefs do remain. And I have a case ongoing in the NGT on the coral reefs that are going to be destroyed for this infrastructure project in Nicobar. Along with 130 square kilometers of pristine tropical rainforest and the climate consequences of which these really looked at. So one can see very clear hypocrisies or double speak when they talk about, yeah, we will be doing this or want to do this, but then on the other hand, the projects that they're clearing, industrial infrastructure projects they're clearing, are actually making the situation much worse. But thanks for adding that. Shamala, last words, and then
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to, also add that, environmental health or even public health has really not had any significant, in fact, if at all, it has remained stagnant or become less. Health allocation this year is only 1.88% of the GDP. Which is, and even in 2017, it was recommended that in 25-26, it should be minimum 2.5%. Our, life expectancy is in the range of 71. China, with a similar population, the life expectancy is about 80 or more. And of course, the same Kirtivardhan Singh is in complete denial of the fact that 17 lakhs people have died of air pollution, or the fact that so many children are dying today because of air pollution, and also the entire thing about productivity. So ultimately, everything comes down to that. So what are we talking about? Various capex and various other things, manufacturing and other things. If you're going to have a unproductive, human resources. So this is something that I would like to emphasize, that, especially in primary health and public health, the allocation has been very poor. And the other points I've already pointed out earlier, which is to do with WASH and SWM and Swachh Bharat. So all in all, I would say that, this budget is not at all supportive of, the kind of conditions that we are going to face, including climate change disasters.
Thank you, Shamala. And actually, if one looks at public health, there are so many factors adding to the disease scenario, which need to be prevented. So it's not just about, as you're saying, it's not just about once somebody falls ill, then having enough treatment and so on. But actually, why are they falling ill in the first place? So whether it's air pollution, poor nutrition in the food, water pollution, and so many other factors which are actually causing a huge disease outbreak in the first place, which is not really a focus for the government. Okay, I think maybe then, since I think the panel is all done, Krishna is not here anymore, and Prarthana doesn't seem to have been able to rejoin. So maybe we can quickly see Debadityo's video, and then I'll wind up and request IMPRI to finish the session. So are you showing? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Debadityo, and I'm quite privileged to be part of this budget discussion since at least last 4 to 5 years, and I really can't thank enough IMPRI for organizing this discussion with all the stalwarts. So I'm immensely privileged, and really apologize that I couldn't join the live discussion, but I'm sending my thoughts uh, uh, based on my understanding of the budget. So, as I always have said, I have said before also in the last discussions, a budget is not only a financial statement. So it is also an indicator or reflection of the government's priorities, the political intent, and also the performance of the government in the last financial year. So, because in the budget, if you see, there is also the budget approved for the last financial year and the revised estimate, the revised budget. And this revised budget shows how much the government have spent in contrast to the amount sanctioned in any financial year. And every year I look forward more than what is allocated for the next year to what has been allocated last year, what the government has said in the budget speech while it was being approved by the parliament, and where it actually stands. So I will start from there, and I will keep my thoughts focused on the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. This is the ministry which is primarily mandated for the protection and conservation of environment, forest and wildlife of the country. It is also MFCC also is a regulator. It's a funding agency for most of the state government and the centrally sponsored schemes. And MFCC is also a monitoring agency. It's an advisor. So it's a ministry responsible for I will say as a trustee of the forest and wildlife of the country. And the budget, I will just tell you certain things which is my initial observation. As quickly that if you see the overall MFCC budget, so the last budget was around 3,412 crores, and the revised budget was 3,481 crores, and next year it is slightly increased to 3,760 something crores to be But if you see the overall budget, then you will think that oh fine, MFCC is functioning very perfectly, everything is good. But if you go in detail, especially in terms of the forest, wildlife, and the institutions which are responsible for, academic institutions or the programs for improvement of wildlife habitats and forest, I have seen on an average at least 40 to 50% reduction in the amount spent, and also the maximum reduction has been 90%. I will come to that. So for example, there's a centrally sponsored schemes on environment, forest and wildlife. So if you see the budget estimate for the last year 2025-26, it was 720 crores, but the revised budget was 391.75 crores. So this is nearly 46% reduction in the budget. And these are the funds which are actually very important for effective management of forest, wildlife protection, and ecological restoration. And presently we all know we are going through the climate crisis, and the way wildlife species are being shrunk, the natural forests are now being given for development purposes, and the increasing number of human wildlife conflicts. So even in fact the government data in the parliament in last session, I think last session, it was said that on an average 120 elephants are dying every year, and the number of tigers and everything is increasing quite a lot. But this budget shows that last year ministry has not spent the money. So there is I will say there's 46% reduced spending on that front. We have Project Tiger, we have Project Elephant, two flagship programs. So we have seen systemic reduction in the budget. And this year also, you see the last year's spending, it was approved, the budget was 450 crores and ministry spent only 265 crores. So it is also around 41% reduction. And if you talk about Project Elephant alone, it is 47%. So this directly impacts the tiger reserves, the elephant corridors, the anti-poaching efforts, the habitat management. And we all know that elephants are moving animals, and you need to take a lot of effort to ensure the protection of the habitat and their corridors. So this is clearly not happening on ground if the budget is not spent what initially planned. So I will say Like this tells a lot of story. We also have a head called Biodiversity Ecosystem Conservation, under which the budget of the last year was 50 crores, and again the ministry spent only 30.48 crores, which is again 40%, around 39% reduction in this. Also, there is a thing called biodiversity conservation, and there is 60% reduction, in the terms of the amount spent. So 10 crore was the budget, very less budget. Even then, we have spent only 4 crores. And there is a budget for conservation of aquatic ecosystems. So although we have seen notification of several Ramsar wetlands, but if you go on ground, you see the health and and the status of the wetlands and all the ecosystems, it is not improving. So and this also reflects in the budget that instead of 35 crores section, we spend only 24 crores. So I will say there's a lot of optics being played out by the ministry, but in the budget clearly shows it's not spending the money and it's not serious. We also have some afforestation program, although we have raised the issue that afforestation in India generally they don't follow ecological situation, but still we have seen the reduction of about 56%, from 220 crores originally sanctioned to 95 crores being spent, and this is to be made for sovereign green fund. So I don't think funding is a problem here. I think the intent is the main problem. Coming to institutions, this is very important because India has few premier institutions on the MFCC. So this includes Wildlife Institute of India, the Indian Institute of Forest Management, the GV Pant Himalayan Institute, so on. And we have seen that the budget of the spending of the WI was originally sanctioned for 52 crores, but actually spent was 40 crores. GV Pant Institute also, the 38 crores, we have spent only 29 crores. But most surprising is that the Indian Institute of Forest Management, the budget which was 10 crores, the revised estimate was only 1 crore. Now whether the IFM couldn't spend or the ministry didn't want to give the money, I don't know. The explanation has to be asked for, but this has been there, and I think the if you ask me the next year budget also, it comes down to just 0.03 crores. So I don't know what is going on, and this really needs explanation why the premier institution like IFM, the budget has been reduced by over 90%, and now I will say 97% budget has been reduced. And this institution play a very important role in guiding the government in the laws and the policies and showing the right way. So if the budget is reduced for this institution, then really it's a concern. But as I said, the budget overall has increased, so definitely there has to be some increase. So when I went through budgets, I was trying to find why the number is there, so I realized that the control of pollution head, the spending has increased from 853 crores, 854 crores sanctioned to around 1300 crores. That means a majority of the budget is being spent for control of pollution. And this clearly shows that we are in crisis. The ministry is spending too much on the control of pollution, and that is taking a toll on the actual protection of natural forest and wildlife. This clearly shows the shift in priorities, and if you talk about the budget, it doesn't exist in isolation. In last couple of years, we have seen the amendment of the critical bills, critical laws which are meant for protection of environment. For example, the Forest Conservation Act, which was amended to facilitate ease of doing business by diluting the safeguards for making way for private players to enter the forest and do plantations, and there's big infrastructure push to the divert forest for non-forest use. The EIA process has been completely, I will say, to be very honest, that the ministry has abdicated its role as a regulator, and projects are being sanctioned in the forest and all. And if you see all these Aravali notification and all, so the message is very clear. The intent of the government is infrastructure growth, but the natural forest, wildlife and everything is not a priority at all. Earlier we used to say it was a low priority, but I have no reservation to say it's not a priority. It's a complete neglect, and this is clearly reflecting in the budget. So I just conclude by saying that in India, it is a duty of both the citizen and government. It's a constitutional duty to protect the forest, wildlife and environment, and government is the trustee of the forest, including wildlife and other things. And if it is not doing, then I think the question has to be asked from the MFCC, and this clarification has to be issued. We must seek answers that what is the reason for the such significant reduced under utilization of fund. yeah, thank you very much, and I hope I have able to give you the my observations. Thank you.
Thank you. We will please thank Debadityo from our side, IMPRI team. We're out of time now. I'm not gonna make any long sort of final comments. Just to say that it seems fairly clear, as has been the trend in the last few years. Environment, natural environment, and other issues like pollution and climate and so on continue to receive a short shift from the government in terms of budgetary allocations and priorities. There are some possible opportunities, such as what Prarthana brought out in terms of SMSCs and so on. Whether those will actually translate into something positive for the environment and for people, we'll have to wait and see. But overall, otherwise, it seems like a fairly grim scenario. So that's it from my side. Over to you, IMPRI, to conclude.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your remarks. Now, with this, I would to proceed to a formal vote of thanks. As we conclude this panel discussion on the environment and the Union Budget 2026-27, I, Ayush Verma, on behalf of IMPRI, Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development, New Delhi, extend my heartfelt gratitude. Our deepest thanks to our chair and experts for today. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists for their insightful and thought-provoking addresses. Your expertise and perspectives have greatly enriched today's discussion and provided us with valuable takeaways on this critical topic. We deeply appreciate your time and contribution. Also, thank all participants who just live, raised pertinent questions, and contributed to today's dialogue. For those watching later on YouTube channel, listening to the podcast or reading our publication, we deeply value your engagement and interest. We look forward to your participation in our third Union Budget session today on cities, local governance, and the Union Budget 2026-27 at 6:30 p.m. and tomorrow on population, head the Union Budget 2026-27 and defense, foreign policy, and the Union Budget 26-27. We hope you will continue to join us for future IMPRI web policy talks and web policy learning programs. Wishing you a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks to the IMPRI team and to the panelists. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.